And David Cantor, do you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, thank you. The first item is for information purposes only, but I have appointed David M. Cantor, 11 Myron Street, to the Office of Town Treasurer for the term of 2023 to 2027, corresponding with this term, my term. And David, we don't need a motion, but I'd like to give David a chance to introduce himself. We've all seen his resume, but say a few words. Probably up at the microphone's in the ceiling.
Thank you for the appointment. Just by background, I had, as Brendan knows, I had applied for the open seat on the board of the library, and Bill pointed out to me that the treasurer position comes with an ex officio seat on the board of the library, so at the library and board, which just came into the determinant who they want to fill the seat. This will allow me to attend the board meetings. In addition, the other duties of the treasurer, I mean, I've worked in the securities industry for 35 years, so happy to with the town's annual or biannual municipal bond underwriting as needed.
Thank you very much. David's been being modest. He was head of leverage finance and high yield capital markets for ABN AMRO. He was managing director at the Seabury Group, a transportation-focused investment bank, and he had held several positions at Lazard Frere in mergers and acquisitions and capital markets department. So we're lucky to have you. Really appreciate your stepping up to do this, David. Thank you. Thanks. Oh, good.
Welcome. Thank you for volunteering, and I love that you are excited about your ex officio role on the library board of trustees and also have such a rich, valuable background, and it's such a benefit of our town.
Well, I know this isn't the first time someone was driven by the library board of trustees being treasurer, because I think we've had one in the past who attended every meeting. So and that was really the most interesting part of it for her. Item number 4, delegation of authority, town attorney Philip Piers. This was postponed from 1/3/2024 Board of Selectmen meeting to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the town attorney. Resolved that pursuant to section 6.1C1 of the town charter, the Board of Selectmen hereby delegates contract making authority to each department head, as well as the first selectman, for contracts that are for a duration of less than 1 month and involve the expenditure by or income to the town of less than $10,000. This delegation of authority does not eliminate review by other persons or bodies where required by the town charter, by ordinance, or by the general statutes. May I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, Bill?
Bill Piers, town attorney. So this is a continuation of the discussion we began at the last meeting. The practice has been for departments to operate if this delegation has occurred. It probably occurred a very long time ago. The charter is clear that the contract making entity is the Board of Selectmen. And so consistent with this provision of the charter, the resolution is for this body to delegate its contract making authority to the extent permissible under the charter to department heads and the first selectman, which again, I think is consistent with how the town has operated historically. It doesn't change any other requirements that might be applicable to purchasing or other things. So to the extent that there are additional requirements, it doesn't change that. Changes is who has the authority to enter into by contract. So happy to take questions or discuss further.
So, yeah, I copied both of you. I had been interacting with the town attorney on this item. And I had reached out to the former town attorney and had asked for his opinion on it because it seemed very bizarre to me that this was coming up because it wasn't anything we had done in the last 4 years or in my long time in service of this town. I've never saw any administration needing this sort of authority. And then Adam sent a list of things which were just these, in my opinion, these are just purchase order items, not contracts. And the town attorney, the former town attorney had shared with you, Phil, and I had asked for your opinion on his opinion. I know he spoke with you, but he feels that this is all under 12.8 in the charter, the purchase orders, and that it's covered and that this really isn't necessary. So I mean, I'd be curious to hear what your position is on what the former town attorney, and he actually took the liberty of signing on too, because we can't figure out why this is necessary.
So, and I did speak to Attorney Baldwin yesterday, who was kind enough to share with me, to you yesterday, and we also spoke about it. The charter is not clear, but it's very clear that the contracting authority is the Board of Selectmen. I don't disagree that there will be times that a purchase order can be issued without the town entering into a contract, but what I've seen and what the town is doing, typically when a purchase order is issued, it's not a freestanding purchase order. There typically is a contract or document that the town must sign to assent to terms and conditions of the relationship with the vendor. If that's the case, that's a contract. And there's no exception in the contract making authority or contracts that are called purchase orders to not this body for approval. One administration ran into issues with a purchase order, and that was the Julian contract, because they called it a purchase order, so it didn't bring this body to review. That was inappropriate because it should have gone to this body to review. We all know that now, right? So I think you get hung up on when a purchase order is a contract or not. It's going to vary in each specific case. Adam, I think, has gone through the outstanding requisitions and talked a list of things that are not under an existing contract. They're not freestanding purchase orders that wouldn't otherwise fall within the contract making authority, and that's what this list is. So, I mean, I'm sure Adam could talk in more detail about specific ones on the list if you have questions.
Right, so I mean, I just want to respond to the Julian contract because that obviously was a contract that lasted longer than a year. And so obviously that had to go to the Board of Selectmen, according to our charter, but some of these items on this list, I mean, a water cooler, weights for the gym, at the town gym, dumbbells. I mean, those aren't contracts. Those are within the budget, and in Crystal Rock, $74. I mean, some of these things it just doesn't make sense to me why we would, first of all, have the email that you sent from Deputy Chief Wyatt, that he had to put together his whole Excel spreadsheet. I mean, I all the time that must have taken, but it's just, it says it listed in there under section 12.8. So using the Julian contract, in my opinion, is a bad example because that was actually a contract that lasted longer than a year. And this is regarding $10,000 in less than 2 months. And buying some items is not a contract. It's a purchase order. It's included in their budgets. And they've been doing it for 50 years, purchasing items. So I just don't understand. This doesn't make sense.
So the $10,000 number is only significant if this board delegates authority. That's the only time that takes significance at all. There's nothing in the charter about 3 months. The charter says 1 month. So.
But 12, can you speak to 12.8 and how that, right, the Board of Finance's purchasing agreement, their policy that they put in, it lists it very plainly, if you read it, that's covered under the purchasing policy.
Yeah, so again, I don't disagree that there could be times that a freestanding purchase order doesn't require the town to assent to a contract, but I'm making a different point. if we're requiring the town to assent to a contract making entity is the Board of Selectmen. And until this board delegates authority, it probably happened years ago, but it's easier, or at least I thought it was easier, to just ask the board to delegate it rather than research when it happened in the 90s. It's probably less time consuming. So.
May I, yeah.
I mean, just in terms of this agenda item, I mean, I think that we all know that the charter could use some work. I thought this was coming before us simply for us to abide by the charter and make the decision to delegate our approval.
Just to add on, I mean, Selectwoman Kupchak, you raised the purchasing policy. The purchasing policy defines purchase orders as contracts. It says that in the policy under 9.2. So I don't think that that's true of every purchase order. There are times that a purchase order will not constitute a contract, but the vast majority of them require the town to sign on to terms and conditions of the vendor, because the town is not just issuing a purchase order. There's usually a proposal, some other document that defines the goods or services the town is purchasing. They receive from the vendor.
I read 12.8 very differently than Mr. Baldwin. So I don't think it's vague, really. I've read it several times, and I could read it now. All supplies, materials, equipment, other commodities by any department, office, agency, board, authority, or commission of the town, including the Board of Education, shall be purchased by the purchasing authority on a requisition in such form as the selectmen may prescribe, signed by the head of the department, office, agency, or chairman, et cetera. I don't think I don't think this means that it doesn't need approval. It just means it will be acquired this way. Otherwise, equipment, I mean, equipment could be a $200,000 piece of equipment that we, would fall under this. I mean, that just doesn't, what he said doesn't necessarily make sense to me. So I feel I'm going to support this. I think over the years, we've probably fallen into this habit because it made sense not to have the Board of Selectmen review and approve so many things. But just because of that, I don't think it means that we should continue on the way we are, because I believe there's probably way too much latitude currently. So we have a charter, we have rules, we should probably apply them. And then when we revise the charter and reopen it, we should take a look at the dollar amounts, because it would be probably nice to bump that number from 10,000 up. So.
Right, it was proposed that it was going to be bumped up to 50, but 12.8 says the first selectman and the purchasing agent acting in conjunction shall be the general purchasing authority of the town. All supplies, materials, equipment, other commodities, contracts for public works or services other than professional services required by any department, office, agency, board, authority, or commission of the town, including the Board of Education, shall be purchased by the purchasing authority on a requisition in such form as the selectmen may prescribe, signed by the head of the department, office, agency, or chairman of the authority, board, commission, or committee. No purchase order shall be issued without the signature of the purchasing agent or in the purchasing agent's absence of the first selectman. That's in the charter.
I'm reading that, but does that mean that?
Well, so I'm not sure I understand what your point is.
Well, the point was that 12.8 in the charter is for this specific issue, right?
Would it?
I mean, it would
read this as saying that I can purchase anything I want.
No. It says in the charter that purchasing items, so we set the budget as the Board of Selectmen, and it goes through the town bodies, and each department gets a budget, and they live within their budget. Every single thing they buy, all 18 departments are buying things that were already approved by all the 3 town bodies. And that's why, I don't think it was a mistake per se. I think we're following the charter. And according to the former town attorney, and it makes complete sense, and I'm not a charter whiz, but 12.8 says it very clearly in the charter that these things that happen on a daily basis in a town of our size, where a department is purchasing things, or Julie's setting up a senior visit for a singing band, or something's happening on the Sherman Green, or whatever it is, should never be coming through the Board of Selectmen, and it says it right there, it shouldn't. Because it's not so much like a contract where you're hiring someone to do a specific thing for more period of time, a longer, and we approve those. But this, I mean, this list that Adam shared, I mean, even the subscriptions for the police where Deputy Chief Waya shared, these are ongoing yearly subscriptions. That's not something that the Board of Selectmen would approve. Those are standard things. So I think section 12.8 explains exactly what the town has been doing for long periods of time, is that the department heads, with the assistance of the purchasing department, that's why we have one, purchase items that were within their budget that have already been approved by the elected officials.
Christine?
I just want to go back to what we're voting on today. And what you're saying, it sounds like that we are, as a board, if we approve this, are comfortable delegating our authority to approve contracts, that we're comfortable delegating that. So I think this is.
It already gives us that authority. It's already in the contract, it's already in the charter.
But there's also, the charter is pretty clear that we need to delegate this responsibility also, that we, a different part of the charter that we're voting on today says that the Board of Selectmen, the authority to approve contract lies with us. And if we want to.
Contracts of a certain criteria.
Of this,
Remember.
if we delegate that, then it sounds like we've covered all bases.
Right, but I feel like it's unnecessary. So there's an important distinction between contracts as set forth in 6.1C in the charter, and the purchasing authority set forth in section 12 of the charter. So this is where I think it's getting caught up. So it's a subject of interpretation. Reconciling apparent inconsistencies in the two charter provisions is answered in past practice and application for the past 50 or more years, which in itself is rooted in practicality. So after all, the requisition, purchase orders for pencils and papers and whatever, nevertheless, a contract by legal definition, but surely, the section 12 was taking that into consideration when it was written, with the full knowledge that the Board of Selectmen contracted.
I don't read it that way. And also, I think from a practical standpoint, I think if you're buying pencils and papers, you should be doing so under a master contract. And so if someone is running to, Home Depot to buy nails, or running to CVS to buy pencils all the time, and they came forward with that, I would say, why are you doing that? First of all, that's not going to happen under once we delegate this, but we want people to be purchasing things under contract, under master contracts. And if they're not, then we've been, we've probably lost money over the years.
So, yeah. I mean, 12.8, or the section on purchasing authority, really deals with who is the purchasing authority and what's the requisition process.
Right.
Contract making authority is a different legal concept. Contract is defined, I'm going to draw your attention to the definition. It includes purchase contracts, it includes leases, service contracts, it includes all contractual relations of the town. Can't get more broad than that. So I think that you might think it's unnecessary. It sounds like you don't disagree that departments should be doing these things on their own without coming to the board. So
No, they never have. And I don't think that they were violating the charter. I think they were.
no one's commenting on, it didn't happen before. I'm not looking to go back over old contracts. We're not opening that. Just going forward, this is the process. And to just be clear about the authority, we're just doing the delegation.
Right, I just don't see the practicality in it. So for example, the Park and Rec Department wants to buy dumbbells. It has to be, that's not, to me, not a contract. He has it in his budget to purchase items for the fitness center.
He will after we approve this.
He works with the purchasing authority, and they purchase it under the guidelines of the purchasing policy.
And it's a complete non-issue with the delegation of authority unless he wants to buy dumbbells that are, $20,000 or something like that.
Right, but they aren't in this list.
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding of what being the purchase authority means. I still believe you can be the purchasing authority and still need approval from the Board of Selectmen. So, are we good?
Could you open up to the public for?
Open it up to the public. Anyone want to comment? Hearing none.
Hi, this is Jim Baldwin. I'd like to comment.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. I'm sorry to make this so torturous, but I think that the point that I want to emphasize is that contrary to what I saw and heard at your prior meeting and in some emails, that all purchase orders are subject to this section 6 of the charter is incorrect insofar as there are numerous, dozens, hundreds probably, of purchase orders that are both in excess of $10,000 and also which may be for a duration of greater than 1 month. And this does not clearly address those purchases and those purchase orders. And that's the simple point that I want to emphasize. And it begs the question as to what then becomes of those purchase orders that are made and authorized already through the budgeting process that contain no special terms or conditions, or may contain terms and conditions which have already been standardized by the town, which is the case in many of these. Then what becomes of those? And the answer to that question is quite clearly, in my opinion, section 12.8 of the charter, that I want to point out that it does reference contracts in there. All materials, equipment, other commodities, contracts for public works or services other than professional services. So it is absolutely perfectly okay. And I have no qualm or disagreement with the town attorney's proposal to get this authorization from the Board of Selectmen to the extent that it covers those items which are for a duration of 1 month or less and under $10,000. But the point I want to make is that it does not cover the lion's share, the vast majority of the other standard purchases that are made on a regular basis by the town's departments. And to say that every single such purchase by town departments must have a formal contract, I believe is unnecessary, is overly burdensome to the town and the departments, especially in those places or instances where things have been standardized. And that's the significant nuance or difference that I want to emphasize. And it's merely for the sake of efficiency and avoiding the quagmire that would otherwise occur. I also want to address First Selectman Gerber's comment about bringing contracts to the Board of Selectmen. The past administration, the Kupchak administration, in fact, changed the standards of the previous administrations, where things such as the Julian contract and others like it, which were awarded by an RFP, were not presented to the Board of Selectmen. Anytime there was a new master contract of any type, it was always brought to the Board of Selectmen, as it should be. And I'm sure that you all agree that it should be.
Yeah.
But when it's a standardized purchase and one which has no special terms or conditions, and it's already been authorized through the budget process, to require a full contract associated with that purchase is, I think, unworkable and also contrary to section 12.8 of the purchasing authority section of the charter. And I'm quite sure and confident that the Board of Finance, in developing their proposed new purchasing guidelines, recognize that and would agree with that. And in fact, their new proposed language seems to do that. So I don't disagree. To come back to the point of the current proposal agenda item, I think it's perfectly appropriate for this board to approve it. But I just want to make sure that the board is clear that it is not thereby saying that that anything more than 1 month in duration or greater than $10,000, if it's like a 10,000 pencils over a course of 3 months for distribution to the schools, that requires Board of Selectmen approval. Because if it falls outside section 6 of the charter, that exception, the delegation authority, then the proposition is that does have to go to the Board of Selectmen. And I just want to suggest to you that will create quagmire by the board, it'll create havoc to the departments, and perhaps also the town attorney's office having to create such contracts unnecessarily.
Thank you, Attorney Baldwin. Would you like to respond?
I think that if you have a contract in duration, if you have a purchase contract that's going to go more than a month, 10,000, I think it is Board of Selectmen approval. I don't think that can be delegated. There are a number of requisitions and purchase orders that the town makes. The town does not assent to terms because they are part of a state master agreement, and the town is already incorporated as a political subdivision. Those Adam's already pulled out from the list. We're not talking about those. So I think that there are a number of additional contracts we will probably end up taking to the board. I think that that's a good thing because it involves the three of you in the process. It's an open process that's transparent, and it ensures that there's legal review to make sure the town's protected. That's just what I think makes the most sense in terms of how to operate.
Yeah, and we've had some discussions, meeting on the new purchasing policy, and one of the things that we're going to try to do, and I know Adam is working on, is master contracts. So, some of these items should fall under master agreements, the smaller items, so that we don't have to bring them back. But, again, I would feel comfortable if there's some discipline around where we go out and buy even our pencils from. If we're supposed to buy them from WB Mason, for example, we have a contract with WB Mason. Everyone should know we should be going to WB Mason, or maybe 2 or 3 different suppliers. They shouldn't be, today, I'm short of pencils, I'm going to run out to CVS. I mean, we need some discipline in this process. I believe, the examples probably they're much bigger and probably more complicated examples than the one I just gave. So I believe this will help, definitely the process of establishing master contracts will help reduce the burden on us. Anyway, any other comments or?
I just don't see the necessity of this. I don't think there's any examples of, listen, I applaud you for wanting to make sure controls are tight. I did that for 4 years. I mean, in light of a very bad system that was here prior, but I don't think there's people running out and buying pencils at CVS. I don't know of any situation where there was some glaring thing that happened. I actually felt in Charter Revision Commission had reviewed even not having the Board of Selectmen review the contracts, because you'll see this as we move forward if we don't have changes to it. But these were all items that the board had already approved. We approved whatever 10,000 for this, or 100,000 for a turf field. We heard all the details of who was gonna do it, the RFP, all of that. And then, a month later, here's the contract. Well, none of us are attorneys. So having the town attorney tell us the contract was good, okay, so like, we're like, okay, so it's kind of to do about nothing, right? You trust your town attorney to make sure the contracts are tight and right, and bringing them even before us, which we're all lay people, maybe in some instances there was a lawyer on. Past. But if you say the contract's good, I'm gonna say, okay, we trust you. But I just feel that this, there was enough like red tape. And I think that gums up the works of our town, and I believe our department heads are good and honest people. The director is capable and smart and does a good job. And I think the process should be the way it has been, unless there is actually a situation where I'm across something that happened. I just don't think it's needed, and I think it's just more work than we need to.
Ms. Vitale?
I think that if we approve this, that this section of the charter that's referenced in the motion, I think is pretty clear. That the Board of Selectmen has this authority, and if we don't want to be voting on these contracts that are less than 10,000 and less than a month in duration, we just have to take the formal step of voting and saying, we delegate this authority to department heads. It sounds like that's what you're advocating for and what has been past practice. And that if we vote in favor of this, that we're basically just saying that we support that mode of operating right now in our town government, that we are comfortable with our department heads making the decisions in these circumstances. Some of the other discussion points that were brought up at this meeting really doesn't address the motion before us of what we're voting for. And that's really what I'm focused on. Said I would support at the last meeting, postponed it to this meeting, really just so we could get the language right for the charter. And I will be supporting it simply because I think it'll make our government more efficient. Agree with you in terms of trusting our department heads if they have the budget and if it falls in these parameters. I don't think that we need to call a special meeting for us to vote on it. And it's just checking a box and saying that we're comfortable with this.
I just want to say that, and listen, I'm not trying to, Mr. Attorney Paul to make his torture somehow.
I mean, and we have two attorneys that basically said they support it. So I think that, I don't understand.
Well, no, I think that the town attorney said that we don't need this and that it's actually unnecessary. So I think it's unnecessary as well. I think it's already in the charter. It says it, in my opinion, the way I'm reading it, the purchasing authority 12.8 gives this authority already. And there is no need for this vote because it's already allowable under that practice. So I'm just going to say that I think that we didn't need to do this and leave it at that.
We're addressing section 6.1. That's what's before us right now. That's what we are addressing. And I know that, there's concerns about another part of the charter, but that's not what we're voting on today. We're voting on whether or not the three of us feel comfortable delegating our contract approval authority to town department heads in these circumstances. And I think that if you support that,
I do, but I think that the charter.
If you don't, I think the charter is clear in this section of the charter. It's
been in 12.8
to delegate that.
That is already allowable, but it's
Yeah,
either here or there.
Yeah, I mean, I read 12.8 differently. I agree with Attorney Baldwin. This could create more work, but I think, in my opinion, Attorney Pierce has interpreted the charter correctly, and I do agree that to make this is an area that when we do reopen the charter, we should revisit this clause, as did the prior Charter Revision Commission, and we should do so again. Are we okay?
Yep.
Ready to vote?
Yep.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
No. Okay. 2-1, motion carries. And the next item is item number 5, to hear, consider, and act upon an administrative lobbying proposal from Gaffney, Bennett and Associates Incorporated regarding the United Illuminating proposal pending before the Connecticut Siting Council in docket 516. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can you just give a little bit of a background to why you think this is needed and?
I would like to say I appreciate you doing it. I had actually reached out to them, September or whatever it was, to assist and see if they would take on something like this for our town because of the magnitude of the situation and the complexity and having to, needing the, having somebody with the connections in Hartford and I know both of those gentlemen, Jay and A to Z, that's what we call them, A to Z. His name is Arsenowitz, but they're both really good and I thought, whatever we could do to get help, and I'm glad that you decided to do it. It's good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and we reached out to them, but I think Attorney Pierce, would you like to?
Just for the public's sake.
So, first I just want to caution the board to not disclose strategy related to the proceeding and the executive session, which we can certainly have if the board so desires to talk about the UI. But in terms of the overall status, so the town has submitted its brief in opposition to the proposal. I submitted its brief in favor of the proposal. The Siting Council is going to issue proposed findings of fact on February 1st. Separate from the Siting Council process, the town is going to pursue a discussion with you all. This lobbyist firm is going to be involved in that and maybe in lobbying the state in other ways. And to Selectman Kupchak's point, it's a good firm and they have a great reputation, and I think the town's well served to engage them. And the time is right to do it now because we've now passed the evidentiary hearing. So I think it's a good time to get them involved. There's no long-term benefit for the town. The contract's going to be month to month. So it's $5,000 a month.
Thank you, Attorney.
This is coming from the legal budget, just in terms of this. We didn't budget for this when the town budget was passed. Just trying to get an idea for costs. And I know that we talked about in our last meeting that some of the legal fees associated with UI and I'm
Coming from legal or?
No,
House, right?
this is not coming from legal.
Do you know where it will come from?
We found the money, but it's not coming from legal. I can get that to you.
Okay, yeah, just in terms of, just want to have an understanding just on the budget impact. I know it's not a lot of money, but you don't know how long potentially we're going to have them under retainer. And I know at our last meeting, we did recognize that there were going to be additional costs associated with, fighting for the town in terms of the monopole project. So,
yeah, I view this as an imperative. So that's why we're committed to allocating the money to this. And we have to fight, we have to fight these poles in our town. It's a real threat to our town.
I do think, though, it's important to come with the funding is coming from. I know that that was always a big thing during my term. I was asked those questions quite a bit, and to make sure that we're at least told that and it's shared. And I would just as a aside recommend that if this does pass, that this firm be in charge of the communications. I know there was some concern about some of the communication coming from your communications person that may not be completely accurate. So I think that we should definitely let this, let professionals be communicating on something of this high level.
I have to object to that strenuously because that person who communicated that is not a lawyer, and we did have this reviewed by a very, very good lawyer. So their concerns are unfounded. So
I'm just saying it would be good if, they're professionals and. So
yeah, there were a lot of professionals involved in that communication. I agree with you. Professionals have to be involved. And I received a letter, an email tried sort of insinuating otherwise, but that email was reviewed in detail by legal. Thank you.
And just if we could find, let us know what account this will be coming out of. That would be
Sure,
really
sure. There are a couple of accounts where this could come out of. And okay, any other comments from the any comments from the attendees here? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right,
Second.
seconded. Thank you.
On favor.
Aye.